Okay. Go ahead and continue this. Washington to Lund, Washington. Philadelphia, November 19th, 1794. Dear Lund, I have sent money to Mr. Pierce for the purpose of discharging and taking in my bond. On my books, kept in my absence from Mount Vernon by my deceased nephew, George A. Washington, were articles charged to you as per the account number 1 enclosed, accounting to 18,18,8. The cash payments in discharge of the bond are contained in the accounts marked number 2. On the first, as it were an open account, no interest is charged. But on the second... Okay, that's exactly what we're going to do. Do a draft. I had that plan, I wanted to get that. I wanted to make it a deck as well. Several payments in the second account, interest is charged from the dates thereof to the 2nd D of October last, and the bond is credited for the same from its date up to that period also. This was the way in which my long and complex and perplexed accounts, which Colonel Geno Mercer was settled, according to the opinion of then Attorney General of the United States, Mr. Randolph. The reason why the interest account was settled up the 2nd of October only is that, having provided the money in September for taking up my bond, I calculated the interest to that period to avoid odd days. And it's odd because you literally just got intending and indeed not doubting that I should have got the money to you by that day. But the insurrection and my preparation about that time to move to the westward diverted my attention from this object. It may, however, be paid up to the present time, if you require it, notwithstanding the money has lain by me ever since, for the sole purpose of discharging this debt. If you have any account against me unpaid for Smith's work, let it be added to and discharged at the same time, that the whole may be closed, as I want to have all my affairs settled. I wish I could have heard that your sight as well as your health was better from Dr. Tate. My best regards, in which Mrs. Washington unites, attend you both, and I am, and see. I appreciate you, but the job's not getting done. Doctor... I appreciate you. I really do. 200 years later, I don't know if that's going to get the job done. I would hope so, though. Again, you did bring up the point, a group of your peers. That's the whole point of it. This generation is the only generation. It's like they're using me as a crutch, and I'm not hearing you. You would not be in any kind of position without me, I assure you. And I promise you I'm going to put you right back in your place. I'm not happy with you at all. It ain't. I'm not shaking your hand. It ain't a pat on back. Congratulations, motherfucker. I come first. I don't know if I have the totes. I don't. I do. Carrot cake. Where was the totes, dude? Tinker's tote. There it is. Tinker's tote. I didn't come first. I'm a Catholic man, but and rightfully so. I'm not going to be. You states, November 21st, 1794. Gentlemen of the Senate, in the negotiation between the U states and His Catholic Majesty, I have received satisfactory proofs of attention and ability exerted in behalf of the U.S. to bring it to happy and speedy issue. But it is probable that by complying with intimidation made to the Secretary of State by the of the U.S. to bring His Catholic Majesty, 24. Gentlemen of the Senate, you states, November 21st, 1794. Gentlemen of the Senate, to the Senate. You states, November 21st, 1794. Gentlemen of the Senate, in the negotiation between the U states and His Catholic Majesty, I have received satisfactory proofs of attention and ability exerted in behalf of the U.S. to bring it to happy and speedy issue. But it is probable that by complying with intimidation made to the Secretary of State by the Commissioners of His Catholic Majesty, much further delay in concluding it may be prevented. Notwithstanding, therefore, I retain full confidence in our minister resident at Madrid, who is charged with powers as Commissioner Plenipotentiary. I nominate Thomas Pinckney to be Envoy Extraordinary of the U.S. to His Catholic Majesty, for the purpose of negotiating of and concerning the navigation of the river Mississippi, and such other matters relative to the confines of their territories, and the intercourse to be had thereon, as the mutual interest and general harmony of neighboring and friendly nations require, should be precisely adjusted and regulated, and of concerning the general commerce between the said United States and the kingdoms and dominions of his said Catholic Majesty, it is believed that by his temporary absence from London in the discharge of these new functions, no injury will arise to the U states. Meeting adjourned. I appreciate you. Sitting there barking orders around. That's not getting the job done. Dude. It's like, from my perspective, what the people on the ground have done is very scary. There's 1794. To William Pierce, Philadelphia, November 23rd, 1794. Mr. Pierce, your letter of the 16th, with the reports except with the carpenters, which I have been without for several weeks, came to my hands yesterday. As I expected, so it happened, my letters to Colonel William Washington of Westmoreland did not reach him until a few days ago. As you seem to be of the same opinion which I entertained at first, namely, that from the easy and simple manners of Donaldson, he would not be a fit overlooker of negroes, I have again written to my nephew concerning the carpenter in his neighborhood, and put the letter under cover to you. Open, that if you have engaged a person for this business, or have one in contemplation for it that you think will answer well, you may accompany it by a line from yourself to stop his application. Otherwise, let it go, and wait the result of Colonel Washington's answer, which, agreeably to my request, I expect you will receive before you engage any other. In case you should get anyone in the place of Donaldson as an overlooker of the carpenters, let him, Isaac, and the boy Jim, be kept to the making and repairing of carts of different sorts, wheels, plows, harrows, rakes, wheelbarrows, and all kinds of farming implements. And tell him, as from me, that I hope and expect that he will take pains to instruct both Isaac and the boy in the principles of the work, that I may derive benefit hereafter from his instructions of them. And that's really cool, but it is as simple as me going into this building that I'm expected to go into and them saying no. You understand? It's that simple. Okay, I'm the authority here. Why are you telling me no? Now I have to fight about it.
Who's Isaac?
Or I'll just sit here and wait until the end of time. You know what I mean? That's kind of where I'm at with you. I have the paperwork I need. That's the problem I'm having on the other end, is that you're chasing me down. When I have the paper, I've been pardoned. I have everything I need. He's up. That's the problem. I'm from stupid mother. All they have. You should. Must be kept. One. You gonna shock me in my bed? Okay, you're done. If you should succeed in getting an overlooker for the Truman Show, oh, they have their moment. Their 5 minutes of. If you should succeed in getting an overlooker for the outdoor carpenters, you will direct the execution of such work as appears to be. You gonna shock me in my bed? Okay, you're done. If you should succeed in getting an overlooker for the outdoors carpenters, you will direct the execution of such work as appears to be most wanting. But whether he be a married or a single man, he must not occupy the rooms in the storehouse. These, while you remain in what is called the servants' hall, must be kept the gentleman's servant, and my own while I am on a visit to Mount Vernon. You're excused. I assure you, you're not going to tell me anything. I humored you. You're done. You're on my terms. When you remove to the ferry, if you means to do so, and the house you are now in, they can come to me at any time. I'm sitting here waiting. That door is closed until you stop acting like a little bitch.
I should give him this.
And the house you are now in is restored to its former use. A single man might in that case occupy the rooms in the storehouse in the manner Mr. Whitting did it, but it would not be very convenient for a married man, especially one with children, to be there. Speaking of gentlemen's servants, it calls to my mind that in a letter from Mrs. Fanny Washington to Mrs. Washington, her aunt, she mentions that since I left Mount Vernon, she has given out 4 dozen and 8 bottles of wine. Whether they are used or not, she does not say, but I am led by it to observe that it is not my intention that it should be given to everyone who may incline to make a convenience of the house in traveling, or who may be induced to visit it for motives of the curiosity. There are but 3 descriptions of people to whom I think it ought to be given. First, my particular and intimate acquaintances in case businesses should call them there. Such, for instance, as Dr. Craik. Secondly, yeah, this is kind of how I think of you, some of the most respectable foreigners who may perchance be in Alexandria or the federal city, and by either brought down or introduced by letter from some of my particular acquaintance before mentioned, or thirdly, to persons of some distinction, such as members of Congress and CA, who may be traveling through the country from north to south, or from south to north, in the first of which I should not fail to give letters where I conceive them entitled. Unless some caution of this sort governs, I should be run to an expense as improper as it would be considerable, for the duty upon Madeira wine makes it one of the most expensive liquors that is now used. While my stock of it is small, and old wine, of which that is not to be had upon any terms, for which reason, and for the limited purposes already mentioned, I had rather you would provide a claret, Clayton, or other wine on which the duty is not so high, than to use my Madeira unless it be on extraordinary occasions. So wherever that wine, Martha's Vineyard. So these guys straight up stole. They did more than steal. They sold their souls, they stole, and they decided for all of earth. And they decided for all of Earth. Can I make my deck, dude? Bro. Okay. I have no objection to any sober or cannot wait. I have no objection to any sober or orderly persons gratifying their curiosity in viewing the buildings, gardens, and CA about Mount Vernon, but it is only to such persons as I have described that I ought to be run to any expense on account of these visits of curiosity, beyond common civility and hospitality. No gentleman who has a proper respect for his own character, except relations and intimates, would use the house for the sake of conveniency, as it is far removed from the public roads, unless invited to do so by me or some friend. Nor do I suppose any of this description would go there without a personal or written introduction. I have been thus particular that you may have a full view of my ideas on this subject and conform to them, and because the knowledge I have of my servants is such as to believe that if opportunities are given them, they will take off 2 glasses of wine for every one that is drank by such visitors, and tell you they were used by them without such a watch over them as the other business you are employed in would not allow you to bestow. Oh, I agree. Snakes in the grass. But the problem I'm having is they're chasing me down and I have the paperwork that I need. That's the space. Ignorance. Blatantly, like, being loud about it. Type of shit they're drop on your ass. Clayton, do you need it? You understand? It's that pork with a moderate, and have to add that so many as are necessary to furnish all those who, by your agreements, are entitled to be served with pork with a moderate allowance for bacon for the use of the mansion house should be put up, whether they be old or young, and I wish pains may be taken to cure the latter, as most of that which was sent to this place was spoiled. Oh, you need a fridge. You need some ice. The principal reason why I requested that none but full-grown hogs might be put up this fall was that my stock of them another year might be the better for it. But as I do not mean to buy pork, the necessity of breaking in upon the young hogs is unavoidable. The old hogs. I mean, you got to think of a cave. So what is it? Hot air rises? Cold air rises? I don't remember which one. Caves are cold, so I guess hot air rises, right? I'm not. I could look it up. I could find the information. Excuse me. It's not that big of a deal. It's already made. Push comes to shove. There's a book for it. You know. I appreciate you, Father. So I mean, you take a cave and then put it into a little device. You know what I mean? Minimize it. Hold on. Get out the old hogs, boys. We're gonna have a good winter. Woo! It was unavoidable. McCoy, the Batman. I mean, really, dude. If you could make a sword, I have no doubt that you could sit here and make this hot water heater. You see it before me, you know what I mean? You see everything. A chimney? It was an omission of McCoy not to measure his potatoes when and as they were taken from the fields, and it is the more to be regretted, as I wanted to know the quantity which grew in each lot. And I don't care about it, I want to be around it, and in particular manner the quantity that grew among corn at that place, that I might see and compare the crop of corn and the crop of potatoes together. But it would seem as if my blundering overseers would forever put it out of my power to ascertain facts from the accuracy of experiments. Make your estimate, as I observed in my last, of the quantity of potatoes required for seed next year, allowing for waste and spoilage, before you use or sell many, it being my wish that many should be planted. In making the calculation whether it is better to sell wheat in grain or in flour, it will be necessary to learn previously whether the first is sold by measure or by the weight. For if 60 pounds is called a bushel and the wheat weighs not more than 55 pounds, the difference will be a very great when 100 bushels by measure is reduced to the bushels it will yield by weight at 60 pounds. You have never informed me what precise measures have been taken with respect to the trespasses on my land on 4 Mile Run, neither of what has passed or prevention. Little girl with the lips, Shay, I assure you, trespass. If it be an account trespassing on my land, I assure you ain't getting a goddamn thing. I wish land in order to ascertain the trespasses and the boundaries, let it be done by some skillful person. The papers I left with you, the wood is the most valued part of the tract. You did very right in the putting of amount of Colonel Lyle. He's talking about the ley line there that you have over here on this window. Oh yeah? Okay, buddy, that's why you're under arrest. Let it be done by some skillful person. The papers I left with you, the wood is the most valuable part of the tract. You did very right in putting the amount of Colonel Lyle's bond into the Bank of Alexandria. Let me know the precise amount thereof. It is also what you deposited there before that I may debit the bank for it. With this letter you will receive another enclosing money to discharge my bond to Mr. Lund, Washington, my donation to the charity school in Alexandria, and subscription towards the salary of Mr. Davis, which I desire may be done without delay. I wish you well and remain, etc. I appreciate you. We'll go ahead and remove these. Here's your target. I don't know how many lands I have. I don't have very many on this one. Right on target. Okay, next one. We're done with that one. I had to stop there. He pardoned me. So then what he does is he drives by 1994. So then what he... I don't need you to do that, is what I'm telling you. Thank you. You can do that somewhere else. Anyway, to William Augustine Washington. Philadelphia, November 23rd, 1794. My dear sir, your letter of the 12th instance came to my hands yesterday. As Congress are now in session, and gentlemen from all the states north of this are assembled, I will make particular inquiry into the characters of the different seminaries, and will let you know the result. In the meantime, inform me how far to the eastward you would consent that your sons should go, to come at the best schools. There are 2 or 3 private academies in the state of Massachusetts that are spoken very favorably of. The college in the state is also in good repute. The Boston University, but neither in that nor at Yale College in Connecticut. But it's odd because they're getting it from me. I mean, I'm sure there's more to it, but at the drop of a dime, you never know. At Connecticut, do they admit boys until they are qualified by a previous course of education? This, however, is not the case with the seminary here. nor, I believe, with that at Princeton. The characters of the latter at this time I am unable to say, but as the best evidence I can exhibit of my opinion of the one in this place is that I am distressed to know what to do with Washington Custis, who I am sure derives little or no benefit from going to it. No doubt you have inquired into the reputation of the colleges at Williamsburg and Annapolis. The first of these I have latterly heard well spoken of, and when I was at Carlisle, I heard a good deal said in favor of the academy at that place, but it was from those who had an interest in so doing. I ascribe your silence respecting my late letters to the cause you mentioned, namely, their not having got to your hands at earlier period. What I suspected would be the case, Mr. Pierce, my manager, informs me is likely to be realized. That is, that the overlooker of my carpenters, newly from Great Britain, though a good workman and apparently an industrious man, has not spirit and activity enough to make the hands entrusted to his charge do their duty properly. I must therefore once more give you the trouble of letting both Mr. Pierce and me know by post as soon as you conveniently can whether there is any chance of getting the man who has so often been the subject of my letters to you, whether he would come singly or with the hands he possesses upon what he terms in either case, and when. Dude, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing it the way you want it done. Truly. While you got a pump. Dude, I don't care about you. I'm not dealing with. My former letters to you on this subject have been so much in detail that I feel no necessity in going further into it on this occasion. So you're the one who killed Pierce. I don't even know the guy, but I know people who know him. He just randomly died, and therefore shall conclude with my best wishes, and guess what you did to me, in which Mrs. Washington unites to yourself and lady. Man, I appreciate you, Martha. You're a sincere friend and affectionate uncle. P.S. In your next say to let post office letters for you and better be directed. I don't even know what to say. So that's who did it. That makes more sense. And he's excusing you. You're excused. Go ahead and arrest him. That entire group. I'll give you about 5 minutes. Let me get my coffee. I'll be able to tell. I guess that's my cue to play the match. What great timing! I'm definitely gonna do a draft though. We got a good several hours here. I am skimming through some of it though, for good reason. I feel like I did a draft with Benjamin. I'll do a draft with you, George. Not horrible. I have the responses I need, definitely. Rosenbach of New York. I think I've seen that one. Writings of Washington to Alexander Spotswood. Philadelphia, November 23rd, 1794. Dear Sir, it has not been in my power to acknowledge with convenience the receipt of your letter of the 14th. All too until now. First, because it did not get to my hands until my return from the westward, and secondly, because my attention ever since to the present moment has been occupied in examining the various papers on which my communications to Congress were to be founded. I do not see how anyone can decide so well on the project you have in contemplation as yourself, who has a view of all the circumstances of the case before you, and who know how far so important a change in the scene as that of transplanting yourself and family into a new country is reconcilable to your feelings and dispositions. And because from the inquiries you have undoubtedly made, you must better know than any other who has not turned his thoughts to the subject, what you can sell for here and buy it there. It has always been my opinion that new countries, by this I mean the interior of our own, are the best to lay the foundation of wealth, inasmuch as lands which, comparatively speaking, are to be had there, cheap rise in a fourfold ratio to what they do in the Atlantic States. And it is to this circumstance, and the opportunities of acquiring them by being in the scene, that the advantages consist, as until the navigation of the Mississippi can be obtained, or communication between the eastern and western waters is made more easy than is the case at present. The principal demand for the produce of the land is found in the emigrants who resort to it. To this cause also is to be ascribed the rapidly increasing prices of those lands. He's talking about the Ark. No, I've thought about that. We went to Colorado. You mentioned that earlier. Me and Carlisle. We were in the scene. We could have talked. That's the problem that we're having here. Russia. On my property. They were excused, and they're being arrested for murder. He can see everything. The problem at this point is the Ark. We're not gonna go to the scene as long as that Ark, until that damage is fixed and we're safe and sound, and I don't feel safe and sound around these motherfuckers by any means. It's not changing. A new country. Well, I don't know about that, but away from these. I promise you that. You're also talking, they're basically putting up roadblocks. This is an opportunity to thrive, and you're basically putting up one big block when you should be allowing, like, the entire group. I mean, you still have to come up with a business plan. I mean, you still have to know the know-how. Again, it's not hard. It's business. You have a product from seed to tree, you know what I mean? You have regulations, here they are. Go have fun with it. Sell, you know what I mean? I don't like the way it was set up. I like California. I'm watching the documentary. You know, you sitting there watching with me as we watch all the documentaries and learn. That was the point of Colorado, is to go there and learn about it. That was the point, to be in part of the scene, and we didn't get it done because instead you were harassing me and chasing me down. I'm not arguing about it either, motherfucker.
I'll learn much from your failure.
I'll be damned if any goddamn one of my motherfuckers, any person that I know has a part to do with any of it, motherfucker. I promise you that. Ooh. I'm more than angry. Alright, I said what I needed to say. We're done after that. We don't need to hear that. For pot shop. Then the notions of this and that would also, like the notion of similarity, be based on none titties. Objection. By the Yogacara school, let all notions be based on none titties. None tidies? Nonentities. Non-entities. What is the harm? Reply. Then your view that everything is an idea would also be based on non-entity. Objection. By the nihilist, let it be. Reply. If all notions are false, your view that all notions are unreal cannot be established. Therefore, it is wrong to say that recognition takes place through similarity. Hence, it is proved that the cause exists before the effect is produced. The effect too exists before it is produced. Question, how? Reply. Sir, I'll sit on that for a minute. We'll let everybody take this in with G. Washington. We're about to do a draft. He wants me to pony up for freedom. That wasn't bad, actually. I'm not gonna lie, it won. You could almost sideboard another Gisela, the Gisettes. I can almost sideboard. You can almost take one of these guys out and put another one of these and leave Bruna. You're pretty stocked on how many? I have 1, 2, 3, 4 planeswalkers. They're all producing. That seems pretty good. This guy's broken. He should be banned, to be honest. You get that guy that gets out there and... Anyway, Senate. Leave that there for a second while we pony up. I like how they know everything that's going on. So on camera here, as you lie, and then he clarifies it later, I think, what they're actually talking about. And he's aware of everything. I don't even believe it. Are you sure that's even what happened? You know what I mean? From my perspective at this point. Are you sure that's not just a ploy? You know what I mean? I guess I'm not really understanding. They are refusing. This shouldn't even be questioned. But anyway, at least I can skip through all that. It's like it's pre-recorded as far as that is. Me reading it, I can skip through it. That makes me feel better about it. Really. Get that out of my system, George. That's for me and him. It's for the bros. For me and Martha, I think later she mentions. Martha says, hey, I'll go ahead and let you know. Go ahead and jump ahead here. I like how like 10 times late. It was like at 150 like 2 weeks ago. It's like, I think maybe it's you at this point. And that's maybe part of my frustration, that you're just flat out lying. And on top of that, assaulting me in my home with devices you're lying about. Oh, here they go. Here they go. I'm not hearing you at all. At all. A little bird chirping. Nah. Not even a little bit. It's pretty simple. They keep trying to interject and then like get put in their place eventually. I don't know what to tell you there with this MK Ultra bullshit. You can take it somewhere else. Thank you though. Allow you to continue, sir. Because its manifestation points out its pre-existence. Manifestation means coming within the range of perception. It is a common occurrence that a thing, a jar for instance, which has hidden by darkness or any other thing and comes within the range of perception, when the obstruction is removed by the appearance of light or in some other way, does not preclude its previous existence. Similarly, this universe too, we can understand existed before its manifestation. For a jar that is non-existent is not perceived upon when the sun rises. I took out the jar is what he's talking about. You want me to talk about my art? So, I like the moss on this. I wanted something mossy, and it really works with the desert. I feel like if you're transitioning, and I still have 3 more to go, and it will work really well with the 3. I feel like if you're transitioning from a desert into a forest, there would be some deep moss, and that goes with the tile depths on high. That's like new life, you know what I mean? That's deep water. It's really soggy. It's like the opposite of a desert. It's really saturated, so it goes with the flow here, especially with the tornado as it rains and then it's swirling up the rapids. It goes really well. But I thank you for it. I created this. It's random. It's AI. You know what I mean? It was a choice out of how many other choices. Objection. No. It must be perceived, for you deny its previous non-existence. According to you, any effect, say a jar, is never non-existent. So it must be perceived when the sun rises. Its previous form, the lump of clay, is nowhere near, and obstructions like darkness are absent. So being existent, it cannot but appear. Reply. Not so, for obstruction is of 2 kinds. Every effect, such as a jar, has 2 kinds of obstruction. When it has become manifest from its component clay, darkness
they'll throw
and the
a
wall,
fit.
etc. are the obstructions.
No.
While before its manifestation
ya.
from the clay, the obstruction consists in the particles of clay remaining as some other effect, such as a lump. Therefore, the effect, the jar, although existent, is not perceived before its manifestation, as it is hidden. The terms and concepts destroyed, produced, existence, and non-existence depend on this twofold character of manifestation and disappearance. Objection. This is incorrect. Since the obstructions represented by particular forms, such as a lump or the 2 halves of a jar, are of a 2 different nature. To be explicit, such obstructions to the manifestation of a jar as darkness or the wall we see do not occupy the same space as the jar, but the lump or the 2 halves of a jar do. So your statement that the jar, although present in the form of the lump or the 2 halves, is not perceived because it is hidden, is wrong, for the nature of the obstruction in this case is different. Reply. No. For we see that the water mixed with milk occupies the same space as the milk which conceals it. Objection. But since the component parts of a jar, such as its 2 halves, see, they're going back and forth. He's just arguing that, like, the theory of relativity is what it is. But they're arguing that because of the glass,
they're throwing it at me, bro.
Milk, and it cannot leave that space, bros. It therefore occupies the same space as that milk. It's like magic. That's what he can do. You see what I'm saying? The gravity there is basically taking form. That's what he can do. But since the component parts of a jar, such as 2 halves or pieces, are inclined in the effect of the jar, they should not prove obstructions at all. Reply. Okay, you can get off that. Reply, not so. Not so. For being separated from the jar, there are so many different effects and can therefore serve as obstructions. So what this little girl is doing is using this arc as as a means, as a hostage situation. Nobody's gonna listen to this shit. You're not getting what you want here. Messing with my dick down here. I should have. I don't know why I did that. You can keep that up. Oh, yeah, you can shoot him. Objection. Then the effort should be directed solely to the removal of the obstructions. That is to say, if, as you say, the effect of the jar, for instance, is actual present in the state of the lump or the 2 halves and is not perceived because of an obstruction, then one who wants the effect, the jar, should try to remove the obstruction and not make the jar. But as a matter of fact, nobody does so. Therefore, your statement is wrong. Reply. No, for there is no hard and fast rule about it. It is not always the case that a jar or any other effect manifests itself if only one tries to remove the obstruction. For when a jar, for instance, is covered with darkness, etc., one tries to light a lamp. Does the milk evaporate in the jar? Well, then therefore the jar would be... Okay. Objection. That too is just for destroying the darkness. This effort to light a lamp is also for removing the darkness, which done, the jar is automatically perceived. Nothing is added to the jar. Reply, no, for the jar is perceived as covered with light when the lamp is lighted. Not so before the lighting of the lamp. Hence, this was not simply for removing the darkness, but for covering the jar with light, for it is since perceived as covered with light. Sometimes the effort is directed to the removal of the obstruction, as when the wall, for instance, is pulled down. Therefore, it cannot be laid down as a rule that one who wants the manifestation of something must simply try to remove the obstruction. Besides, one should take such steps as will cause the manifestation for the efficacy of the established practice regarding it. We have already said that an effort which is patent in the cause serves as an obstruction to the manifestation of other effects. So if one tries only to destroy the previously manifested effects, such as the lump or the two halves which stand between it and the jar, one may also have such effects as potsherds or tiny pieces. These two will conceal the jar and prevent it being perceived, so a fresh attempt will be needed. Hence, the necessary operation of the factors of an action has its utility for one who wants the manifestation of a jar or any other thing. Therefore, the effect exists even for its manifestation. From our divergent notions of the past and future also we infer this. Our notions of a jar that was and one that is yet to be cannot, like the notion of the present jar, be entirely independent of objects. For one who desires to have a jar not yet made sets oneself to work for it. We do not see people strive for things which they know to be non-existent. Another reason for the pre-existence of the effect is the fact that the knowledge of God and the yogins concerning the past and future jar is infallible. Were their future jar non-existent, his and their perception of it would prove false. Nor is this perception a mere figure of speech. As to the reasons for inferring the existence of the jar, we have already stated them. I'll say I was at 1288. When they entered Joseph's presence, they pleaded, "O chief minister, we and our family have been touched with hardship, and we have brought only a few worthless coins, but please give us our supplies in full, and be charitable to us." Indeed, Allah rewards the charitable. He asked, "Do you remember what you did to Joseph and his brother in your ignorance?" They replied in shock, "Are you really Joseph?" He said, "I am Joseph, and here is my brother, Benjamin. Allah has truly been gracious to us. Surely whoever is mindful of Allah and patient, then certainly Allah never discounts the reward of the good doers." They admitted, "By Allah, Allah has truly preferred you over us, and we have surely been sinful." Joseph said, "There is no blame on you today. May Allah forgive you. He is the most merciful of the merciful. Go with this shirt of mine and cast it over my father's face, and he will regain his sight. Then come back to me with your whole family." When the caravan departed from Egypt, their father said to those around him, "You may think I am senile, but I certainly sense the smell of Joseph." They replied, "By Allah." Excuse me for a second. Sir.
I know what must be done.
They replied, "By Allah, you are definitely still in your old delusion." She seduced me. Ooh, bad choice. Not your lucky day, buddy. Ah, man, that is awkward. hold on. It's something still new. I got something going on here. It's good. First thought, excuse me, back off. Not your lucky day today. At all. I'll wait, don't worry. But when the bearer of the good news arrived, he cast his shirt over Jacob's face so he regained his sight. Jacob then said to his children, "Did I not tell you that I truly know from Allah what you do not know?" They begged, "Oh, our father, pray for the forgiveness of our sins. We have certainly been sinful." He said, "I will pray to my Lord for your forgiveness. He alone is indeed the all-forgiving, most merciful." When they entered Joseph's presence, he received his parents graciously and said, "Enter Egypt, Allah willing, in security." Then he raised his parents to the throne, and they all fell down in prostration to Joseph, who then said, "Oh, my dear father, this is the interpretation of my old dream. My Lord has made it come true. He was truly kind to me when he freed me from prison and brought you all from the desert after Satan had ignited rivalry between me and my siblings. Indeed, my Lord is settled in fulfilling what he wills. Surely he alone is the all-knowing, all-wise." My Lord, you have surely granted me authority and taught me the interpretation of dreams. O originator of the heavens and the earth, you are my guardian in this world and the hereafter. Allow me to die as one who submits and join me with the righteous. That is from the stories of the unseen which we revealed to you, O prophet. You were not present when they all made up their minds and when they plotted against Joseph. And most people will not believe, no matter how keen you are. Even though you are not asking them for a reward for this Quran, it is only a reminder to the world. How many signs in the heavens and the earth do they pass by with indifference? Oh, I assure you, they're in trouble. In one part of your letter, you talk of removing to Kentucky, and in another of vesting money in lands. Northwest of the Ohio, which creates a doubt as your principal view. You are not uninformed, I presume, that there is no land office open at this time in the last named district, and that there is no means by which land can be obtained there, at present, except by purchase of army rights, or from some of those companies to whom Congress have sold large tracts, and in the present stage of our disputes with the Indians, that no settlement is thought safe from the scalping knife, that is not under the protection of some fort. The same indeed may be said of the frontiers of Kentucky. While the central lands in the state are, as I have been informed, very high, but of these facts you must be better informed than I am. I should think it perfectly expedient, so soon as you shall have resolved to sell your land on Rappahannock, to advertise it in all the principal gazettes from Richmond to New York inclusively, and not to be too hasty in disposing of it, except for a very good price, as there are reasons to believe that in the course of this winter and in the ensuing spring and summer, many men of property from Europe will remove to this country or send over their property with a view to invest it either in our funds or in lands. With respect to the other species of property concerning which you ask my opinion, I shall frankly declare to you that I do not like to even think, much less talk of it. However, as you have put the question, I shall in a few words give you my ideas of it. Were it not then that I am principled against selling Negroes as you would do cattle in the market, I would not in 12 months from this date be possessed of one as a slave. I shall be happily mistaken if they are not found to be a very troublesome species of property, ere many years pass over our heads. But this by the by. For this reason, because there is but little sale for what is raised in the western country, it remains for you to consider whether their value would not be more productive in lands, reserving enough for necessary purposes, than to carry many there. My love to Mrs. Spotswood and the family. I am, etc. To William Pierce. Philadelphia, November 30th. Okay, hold on. William Shakespeare, King James Version here. Original King James Version. And when it says original, it means the original. Ecclesiastes chapter 2. I said in mine heart, go now, I will prove thee with mirth. Therefore enjoy pleasure, and behold, this also in vanity. Again, William Shakespeare, the King James Version was rewritten. The Bible was not, it's not the King James Version. So the original Bible was written into the King James Version by William Shakespeare. He helped. I said of laughter, it is mad, and of mirth, what does it? I sought in my heart to give myself into wine, yet acquainted my heart with wisdom, and to lay hold on folly, till I might see what was that good for the sons of men, which they should do under the heaven all the days of their life. I made me great works, I builded me houses, I planted me vineyards. I made me gardens and orchards, and planted trees in them of all kinds of fruit. I made me pools of water to water, wherewith the wood bringeth forth trees. I got me servants and maidens, and had servants born in my house. Also I had great possessions of great and small cattle, above all that were in Jerusalem before me. I gathered me also silver and gold, and the peculiar treasure of kings and of the provinces. I gat me men singers and women singers, and the delights of the sons of men, as musical instruments, and that of all sorts. So I was great, and increased more than all that was before me in Jerusalem. Also my wisdom remained with me. And whatsoever mine eyes desired I kept not from them. I withhold not my heart from any joy, for my heart rejoiced in all my labor, and this was my portion of all my labor. When I looked on all the works that my hands had wrought, and all the labor that I had labored to do, and behold, all was vanity and vexation of spirit, and there was no profit under the sun. And I turned myself to behold wisdom and madness and folly, for what can the man do that cometh after the king? Even that which hath been already done. When I saw that wisdom excelleth folly, as far as light excelleth darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walketh in darkness, and I myself perceived also that one event happeneth to them all. Then said I in my heart, as it happeneth to the fool, so it happeneth even to me, and why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, that this also is vanity. For there is no remembrance of the wise more than of the fool forever. Seeing that which now is in the days to come shall all be forgotten, and how dieth the wise man, as the fool. Therefore I hated life, because the work that is wrought under the sun is grievous unto me, for all is vanity and vexation of spirit. Yea, I hated all my labor which I had taken under the sun, because I should leave it unto the man that shall be after me. And who knoweth whether he shall be a wise man or a fool? Yet shall he have rule over all my labor wherein I have labored, and wherein I have shewed myself wise under the sun. This is also vanity. Therefore I went about to cause my heart to despair of all the labor which I took under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is in wisdom, and in knowledge, and in equity. Yet to a man that hath not labored therein shall he leave it for his portion. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what hath man of all his labor, and of the vexation of his heart, wherein he hath labored under the sun? For all his days are sorrows, and his travail grief. Yea, his heart taketh not rest in the night. This is also vanity. There is nothing better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that he should make his soul enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw, that it was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who else can hasten hereunto more than I? For God giveth to a man that is good in his sight wisdom and knowledge and joy, but to the sinner he giveth travail, to gather and to heap up, that he may give to him that is good before God. This also is vanity and vexation of spirit. To William Pierce. Philadelphia, November 30th, 1794. Mr. Pierce, as the experiment of grinding 100 bushels of wheat into flour is found more profitable than to sell the like quantity in grain, I would have you proceed in the manufacture of what little I have made. And I desire the particulars of the experiment may be sent to me. And the miller must be careful that he keeps up to it, or I may be deceived thereby. Caution Sally Green against dealing with my negroes after she is fixed in Alexandria. If she deals with them at all, she will be unable to distinguish between stolen or not stolen things. And if her conduct should lay her upon to suspicion, she would need expect no further countenance or support from me. What demands the mill swamp may have upon your labor for the next year I do not know, but independent of this, I should think the mansion house and muddy hole gangs with such force as you might draw from the other farms, would not fall much short of clearing up the skirt of woods mentioned in my former letter, and if well grubbed and thoroughly broke up, it would be infinitely better for corn than number 6 at Muddy Hole, which is extremely poor and much worn. However, as I observed in my former letter, I leave the matter to your own judgment, but desire, not only for the sake of the corn which will go into the ground, but for the pasture afterward, and for the prevention of sprouts choking it, that everything may be grubbed that can be grubbed, although it would require more time to clear the land in the first instance. And as it will look as well to be cleared in clumps, letting these clumps be some of these large and some small, I would have done so, as the corn will be much better than if growing among single trees, as was the case in the enclosure by the White Gate. This enclosure might be cleansed and brought into corn also. As soon as your corn is all gathered and measured, let me have the account of it. One view, naming the farms and fields in which it grew. You talking about Clearwater Lake, the moss? Do the same by the other crops, and I wish to know as nearly as possible if McCoy's plundering will not suffer it to be done accurately, the quantity of potatoes that grew in number 4 at Dogue Run. Have you fixed nothing yet with pine, nor with any other for the mansion house? The person living there, if you remove to the ferry, ought to be a careful and trustworthy character. You speak of stuff for sheds, but do not say where. I wanted sheds on the foundations which were laid to brick at Dogue Run, to be erected for the works, horses, oxen, and ca. The corn houses making one of the sheds at the ends of them. My plan was fully explained to Green, but whether Isaac or Tom Davis understood it or not, I am unable to say. They were to be half roofs, open in the front, so high as to admit horses and ca. freely into them without in danger of rubbing their heads or backs. I will get 4 or 5 bushels of clover seed and send it to you in time, and shall depend upon your having enough of all other sorts. I am, etc. P.S. I hope you received my last letter with the $1,300 safe. To William Pierce, Philadelphia, December 7th, 1794. Mr. Pierce, your letter of 30th, all 2, with the weekly reports came safely to hand. By mistake, the sum of $300 was omitted in the charges against my bond. To Mr. Lund Washington, as you have discovered in the above letter, by my mode of settling the bonded account, he will be 710.8 in my debt, and by the mode he proposes, I shall be 51.12.11 in his debt. Which of these is by the mode which a court of law or equity would settle it? I neither know nor shall try. All I can say on the subject I have already said in my letter to him, viz., that Mr. John Mercer settled my account with his father's and brother's estate by charging my interest on all his payments, and when I objected thereto, he said it was the method by which the Chancellor in Virginia settled matters of a like nature, which was confirmed by Mr. Randolph, who was well acquainted with the practice of that court. However, as I am determined to have no dispute on the subject, Mr. Washington may settle it by which account he pleases. Both are enclosed, or by striking a medium between the 2 methods, so as shall be most agreeable to his own ideas of justice. Take up my bond, and after tearing my name from it, send it to me. Let all the accounts between him and me be finally closed, and, unless there is an absolute occasion for it, do not run me to the expense of Smith's work there or elsewhere in future. After you have discharged this account and such others as are known to due from me, place the surplus of the money in the Bank of Alexandria, and give me an amount of the sum. But on the second seance there will be your own wages. The wages of the overseers and ca. will be due in a very little time. Let all be paid, for I never be in the debt of anyone, or I have any money in my possession that another has a right to call for. You had better therefore pay all these off, detain what is due to yourself, and not close or transmit your accounts until these are done, and the year is ended, that your next in every account may commence with the new year's. The Federalist Papers. So they're combining. So, yeah. Hamilton is basically giving his share. A joint bank account here. In my last, I desired that my wheat might all be manufactured and held in readiness for the first good market that shall offer, of which keep me advised. The price of superfine flour at this place is 65 per barrel, and that of fine 62 and 62.6 wheat from 9.6 to 12.6, according to quality. As your crop of fodder this year has been great and got in good season and much more grass than usual cut, I flatter myself you will have a good deal of hay for sale. Be this, however, as it may, do not sell close enough to you. Do not sell close until you are able to see your way through the winter clearly. I wish that my horses and stock of every kind should be fed with judicious plenty and economy, but without the least profusion or waste, and be particularly attentive whilst you are feeding away the potatoes to reserve an ample stock of them for seed, as also of turnips. If there came no more than 600 bushels of potatoes from the field, number 4, and the lots of Dogue Run, the crop must have been a very good and different one at that place. But I was more anxious to know how many bushels grew in the field number 4, that I might compare it with the yield of the same field in corn. I think it would be no unsatisfactory experiment to fat one bullock altogether with potatoes, another altogether with Indian meal, and a third with a mixture of both, keeping an exact account of the time they are fatting, and what is eaten of each, and of hay by the different steers, that as a judgment may be formed of the best and least expensive mode of shall feed a beef for market or for by my own use. You will recollect that when number 5 comes into tillage, which I believe it is due in course next year, that the woods within the fence is to be cleared up, and prepared also for corn, for Clayton, in order to supply the place of the 2 lots by the barn, and the barnyard itself, which were taken from the field. I intended that the sheds at that farm, which were intended to be erected on the brick foundations adjoining the 2 corn houses, should be shingled with cypress, and mention it now, that it may not be misunderstood when the work is gone about. As the wood on my 4-mile run tract is the principal value of it, I would not have you delay inquiring into the nature of the trespasses, nor in punishing of those who are guilty of them, if the proofs are clear, and they are. How does the new race at the mill progress, and when do you conceive it will be fit for use? How does James Donaldson conduct himself? Does he appear to understand well those kinds of work which he professes to have been particularly bred to? That wave that you're using there, buddy. You can get out, and it has been moved into the house below the hill. Caution him against familiarities with the Negroes. I perceive by your last letter that you have moved your family to the ferry, but have left a bed for yourself in the end of the store. If you had liked it better, it would have been quite agreeable to me that you should have retained a room in the house, the one of which I believe you were accustomed to lodge. But do it in this matter are most agreeable to yourself. What was expressed in a former letter respecting the manner of treating visitors to Mount Vernon was laid down as a general rule. The persons not always recommended or introduced in the manner I described in the letter may go there, who are entitled to equal civilities, and in such cases you must govern by your own judgment. And this I have so much confidence as to rely on it, being well convinced that you regard for propriety will not suffer any misapplication of the means that may be committed to your care, and as far as it is practicable that you will not suffer the servants to misapply them. Therefore, for such occasions and for the use of the sick, I desire you will lay in a box of claret and some Lisbon or a Tenerife wine, that my Madeira may be preserved, as it is old, and not easy to be replaced, for my own use when I go home, I remain, etc. Even though you're not asking them for, yeah, you. I didn't ask him, but definitely, I appreciate you. I guess I would have to look at the time frame in the Federalist Papers with Hamilton and Washington here, exactly when that happened, transpired. They're just flatly refusing. they feel secure that an overwhelming torment from Allah will not overtake them, or that the hour will not take them by surprise when they least expect it? Say, O Prophet, this is my way. I invite to Allah with insight. I and those who follow me, glory be to Allah, and I am not one of polytheists. We only sent before you, O Prophet, men inspired by us from among the people of each society. Have the Niders not traveled through the land to see what was the end of those destroyed before them? And surely the eternal home of the hereafter is far better for those mindful of Allah. Will you not then understand? And when the messengers despaired and their people thought the messengers had been denied help, our help came to them at last. We then saved whoever we willed, and our punishment is never averted from the wicked people. In their stories, there is truly a lesson for people of reason. This message cannot be a fabrication. Rather, it is a confirmation of previous revelation, a detailed explanation of all things, a guide and a mercy for people of faith. The ship. To Tobias Lear, Philadelphia, December 12, 1794. My dear sir, your letter of the 5th instant and the receipt for the second payment of the lots I purchased on the eastern branch in the federal city came duly to hand. You are perfectly at liberty to examine my presses and trunks at Mount Vernon for any papers I may have respecting the transfer. Of the directors of the Potomac Company, or any matters, the things which may concern the navigation of that river. Mrs. Fanny Washington has the master key of all the others, from whom you can get it, but whether the papers you are in pursuit of are to be found in the press or in any trunk, I am unable to inform you. The keys of the locked trunks are, if I remember rightly, in my writing table, the key of which remains in it. It's awkward. For many very important reasons, unnecessary to enumerate, the navigation of that river ought to be pushed forward with all the celerity which the nature of the work will admit. Viewing the matter as I do, I will not neglect any fair opportunity of facilitating a visit from Mr. Weston to that quarter. But under the rose, I must say it, however fair the assurances of his going thither may be, you may take it for granted that from motives of jealousy there is countertide to that measure. And I wish you may not find something similar to it in another quarter if the operations on the Shenandoah are proposed much longer. Do not forget how the trade of Fredericksburg, Falmouth, Hanover Town on York River, and indeed Richmond itself will be affected by the opening of this navigation. I should not be at all surprised, therefore, if future applications to the Assembly of Virginia, if there be occasion to make any respecting it, should meet with much coldness and difficulty. I should not, any more than you, be disposed to confide in the opinion of Mr. Claiborne's engineer, nor, in confidence to you, to Mr. Claiborne himself, but as he speaks in exalted terms of this man, for you must know Claiborne is now in this city, and has mentioned the matter also to me. A little money might not be misapplied in obtaining the opinion of this engineer, to see how far it would accord with Mr. Weston if he can be got there, without if he should follow after letting him know what his opinion is. 'Tis possible this person may unite, as Claiborne says he does, both science and practice. If so, and he should possess other requisites, he might be useful. Trial of, without a reliance upon him, cannot be injurious. Mr. Jonathan Trumbull has once or twice asked me what reply the comrades of the Federal City had made to the letter of his brother John, which I sent to them. Be so good as to remind them, or either of them, would you may first see of this matter. I am, etc., NYPL. I will, eventually. I see you. It's not that big of a deal. To Tobias Lear, Philadelphia, December 14th, 1794. My dear sir, the day following the one on which I wrote to you last, your letter of the 10th instant was received. It is to be regretted exceedingly that delegated powers are oftentimes so little regarded, and that trust of an important nature, the neglect of would may be attended with serious consequences. Should he suffer to sleep in the hands of those who ought to carry them into activity, such from your representation to carry them into activity, such from your representation appears to be the case of the petition which ought to be in half of the Potomac Company, to have been laid before the Assembly of Virginia in due season. The notice of the presentment of such petitions, which is required by law, cannot, I presume, be dispensed with, and if there be any dereliction to the measures prayed for, the limitation to an expiration of the time from the reception of them will be urged at the plea for postponement. The propriety of my writing to an individual members, or even to the Assembly itself on the subject, is in my mind a matter that may be questioned. But supposing the case to be otherwise, I do not know who the members are, and such indeed has been the change of things since I mix in the politics or such with the people of the state. General Assembly. Okay, we'll go to representative. There's a lot more representatives. There's actually not that many. Okay. People of that state, out of the neighborhood of Alexandria, that an entire new set, unknown to me personally, are in the exercise of the powers of government. Tomorrow, however, I will communicate this matter to Mr. Randolph, and know if he has any acquaintances in that assembly to whom he could introduce the subject and thereby aid your personal exertions. It is to be lamented, however, that in plain matters a little tickishly circumstance, such hazard, at least of delay, should be unnecessarily encountered. We are all well and join in best wishes for you, and I am and C. To William Pierce, Philadelphia, December 14th, 1794. Mr. Pierce, your letter of the 7th instant enclosed the reports of the preceding week came duly to hand. I approve your idea of clearing up the wood between the fence and the road, and letting it lay over to another year. But cure, it would not be better, instead of cleaning the ground thoroughly and exposing the earth to the rays of summer sun, to have it well grubbed and lined with all the brush on it until the proper period arrives for breaking it up for corn. We've talked about it. In many places, this is a universal practice, but my name is not William Pierce, is it? And in the opinion of some, especially in the northern and eastern states, an indispensable one, they have two ways of doing this. The one is by letting the brush lie on the ground until the leaves and small twigs have fallen and are beginning to rot, which when plowed and occasions putrefaction and fermentation, and of course more product after these have happened. The other is alcohol. The other is to, what is this, the prohibition? The other is to let the brush lie, not in heaps by piling it up, but as it cut off until the spring, and then set fire to it, which, spreading over the whole surface, equally warms the earth, while the ashes serve as a manure. Weight of these is best, or whether either of them are better than to expose the soil to the sun, as it is of a cold and sour nature. I believe that Martha planted this tree right here. Deserves consideration. At any rate, I agree with you in opinion that it is best, as you have already plowed up number 6 at Muddy Hole, not to tend the ground. Now in wood and of weight we are speaking. In corn next year, my wish, as I mentioned in a former letter, is that when the ground is cleared, everything that can be taken up by the roots may be grubbed, for though more time will be required to do this, yet in the end labor will be saved by it. As to lay the grubs all one way will also do. I am very willing that you should tend the number of corn holes in the mansion house which you propose, and with the forest belonging to that place. But do you not mean to comprehend the ground between the orchard and outer fence, as well as the orchard itself? The first is necessary in order to clean and get the ground in order, as bushes and shrubs are spreading over it. So the berries and the orchard go together. But where and in what manner do you mean to have the communication between the stables and the pasture below the hill? The most natural one, at least the one most out of sight, would be by a lane around the clover lot by the quarter's backside. The fence to enclose that field for corn ought not to appear in view of the house, and for that reason it should descend the hill far enough to effect this purpose. That goes from the lot where the potatoes grew last year to where the old cabin stood. I likewise think with you that the field between the meadows and the mill would hardly pay the cost of cultivation until all the woods which are therein is cleared up, and therefore have no objection to letting it remain a while longer. You get the wave off. But I cannot consent, in order to effect this, to be tending the same fields over and over again, because they may happen at this moment to be in somewhat better condition. This would be continuing a practice which has been the destruction of my land hitherto, and which my great aim and endeavor is to avoid. By the last report from the Union Farm, I perceive you are plowing in number 6, but for what I propose I cannot conceive, as I have not recollection enough of my plan of routine to decide whether it is agreeable thereto. But know that it was in small grain last year, and in corn the year before, the parts of extremely poor. Nor do I at this moment call to mind what field at that farm goes into corn next year, if it be number 4 as part of it. According to both, our ideas had better lay longer untilled. I would ask whether the difficulty might not be made for the hands thereof by tending the enclosure between the white gates and the gates in the hollow. Good part of that enclosure, if the trees were trimmed up and in some places thinned, would bring, for it has brought, good corn. Buster over here, trying to bust the bubble. It's working. I can feel it. I hope and wish Allison may turn out well. I know nothing of the one you have engaged, but it is a family of very little respectability and closely, well, it would actually be the reflection on the robot, and closely connected with a set of people about my mill. The Pools, particularly, than whom I believe a more worthless set are nowhere to be found. It was this Allison, too, if I mistake not, with whom Crow spent, or rather misspent much of his time. I remember well your speaking to me concerning the erection sheds for the cattle by the new barn at the Union Farm, and my consent thereto, nor do I object to them now. On the contrary, am I much pleased that you are extending them to all the farms, but desire that these may not prevent the erection of those I had contemplated by the barn at Dogue Run for the work, horses, and cattle, so soon as the carpenters are enabled to build them. I perceive you are gathering thornberries, with which I am pleased. But to turn them to account, they must lie buried a year before they are sown. I presume, however, you have informed yourself of all of this. She's basically holding account hostage because she's trying to plan on making money off me. On top of that, she's using the arc and firing a wave at me. It's at my third eye right here. It's the speech. So we can go ahead and get on that and remove that. I'll be taking over that. No, I'm not interested at all. I'll be taking that over. I believe. Again, you go in there, they're going to laugh at you. I mean, I have the paper. The problem is they're chasing. That's the problem here. They're leaving it at nothing. Anyway. Secretary of State, private. Philadelphia, December 15th, 1794. Dear Sir, for the reasons mentioned to you the other day, viz. The Virginia Assembly being in session and a plan being on foot for establishing a seminary of learning upon an excessive scale in the federal city, it would oblige me if you and Mr. Madison would endeavor to mature the measures which will be proper for me to pursue in order to bring my designs into view, as soon as you can make it convenient to yourselves. I do not know that the enclosed, or sentiments similar to them, or proper to be engrafted in the communications which are to be made to the legislature of Virginia, or to the gentlemen who are named as trustees of the seminary, which is proposed to be established in the federal city, but as it is an extract of what is contained in my will on the subject, I send it merely for consideration. The last page of the press copy is missing from the Washington papers. The portion in brackets is supplied from the printed text in M.D. Conway's George Washington and Mount Vernon, You can't see the name. Long Island Historical Society Memoirs, Volume 4. The extract from the will is with this draft, as it varies considerably in words, but not in sense from the will of July 9th, 1799, post. It is here given as the only known surviving part of the will, which was destroyed, Will Smith, which was destroyed by Washington's direction when he was dying, December 14th, 1799. I even said it. That's long ago. He put a little mirror up here. The first nuke. It has always been a source of serious reflection and of sincere regret with me to see the youth of these United States sent to foreign countries for the purpose of the shares in the different navigations to be located and applied in the manner which has been the subject of conversations. Yours affectionately. I regret it. Why do you regret it? He said it. I'm heaven. You're not.
Oh, yeah,
You said it, not me. I'd say his little experiment. If you get down to Benjamin and stuff, I believe John Solomon over here has mentioned Benjamin, our brother Benjamin. So let's move on to number 13, Radi. Alif Lam Mim Ra. These are the verses of the book. What has been revealed to you, O prophet, from your Lord is the truth, but most people do not believe. It is Allah who has raised the heavens without pillars, as you can see, then established himself on the throne. He has subjected the sun and the moon, each orbiting for an appointed term. He conducts the whole affair. He makes the signs clear so that you may be certain of the meeting with your Lord. And he is the one who spread out the earth and placed firm mountains and rivers upon it, and created fruits of every kind and pairs. He covers the day with night. Surely in this are signs for those who reflect. And on the earth there are different neighboring tracts, gardens of grapevines, various crops, palm trees, some stemming from the same root, others standing alone. They are all irrigated with the same water, yet we make some taste better than others. Surely in this are signs of those who understand. Now, if anything should amaze you, O prophet, then it is their question, how old are you? When we were reduced to dust, will we really be raised as a new creation? It is they who have disbelieved in their Lord. It is they who have shackles around their necks, and it is they who will be the residents of the fire. They will be there forever. They ask you, O prophet, to hasten the torment rather than the grace, though there have already been many torments before them. Surely your Lord is full of forgiveness for people despite their wrongdoing, and your Lord is truly severe in punishment. The disbelievers say, if only a sign could be sent down to him from his Lord. You, a prophet, are only a warner, and every people at a guide. Allah knows that every female bears and what increases and decreases in the wombs, and with him everything is determined with precision. He is the knower of the seen and the unseen, the all-great, most exalted. It is the same to him whether any of you speaks secretly or openly, whether one hides in the darkness of night or goes about in broad daylight. For each one there are successive angels before and behind, protecting them by Allah's command. Indeed, Allah would never change a people's state of favor until they change their own state of faith. And if it is Allah's will to torment a people, it can never be averted, nor can they find a protector other than Him. He is the one who shows you lightning, inspiring you with hope and fear, and produces heavy clouds. The thunder glorifies His praises, as do the angels in awe of Him. He sends thunderbolts, striking with them whoever He wills. Yet they dispute about Allah, and He is tremendous in might. Calling upon Him alone is the truth. But those idols the pagans invoke besides Him can never respond to them in any way. It is just like someone who stretches out their hands to water, asking it to reach their mouths, but it can never do so. The calls of the disbelievers are only in vain. To Allah alone bow down in submission all those in the heavens and the earth, willingly or unwillingly, as do their shadows morning and evening. Ask them, O Prophet, who is the Lord of the heavens and the earth? Say Allah. Ask them, why then have you taken besides Him lords who cannot even benefit or protect themselves? Say, can the blind and the sighted be equal? Or can darkness and light be equal? Or have they associated with Allah partners who supposedly produce a creation like His, leaving them confused between the two creations? Say, Allah is the creator of all things, and He is the one, the Supreme. Of course, I needed one more first. Chapter 3, Ecclesiastes. To everything there is a season and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to rend and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time of war and a time of peace. What a profit hath he that worketh in that wherein he laboureth? I have seen the travail which God hath given to the sons of men to be exercised in it. He hath made everything beautiful in His time. Also He hath set the world in their heart. Let's take a 5-minute break. Okay, we got food in the oven, so we're gonna wait on this. And he just told me I would have lost it. How would you have known that? So you're saying if I don't play it, I will not lose it? Is that what you're arguing? Let's continue this. Be like 10 minutes on the food. So that no man can find out the work that God maketh from beginning to the end. I know that there is no good in them, but for a man to rejoice and to do good in his life. And also that every man should eat and drink and enjoy the good of all his labor. It is the gift of God. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, for anything taketh from it, and God doeth that men should fear before him. That which hath been so is now, he that which is to be hath already been, and God requireth that which is past. And moreover, I saw under the sun the place of judgment, that wickedness was there, and the place of righteousness, that iniquity was there. I said in my heart, God shall judge the righteous and the wicked, for there is a time there for every purpose and for every work. I said in my heart concerning the estate of the sons of men, that God might manifest them, and that they might see that they themselves are beasts. For that which befalleth the sons of men befalleth beasts, even one thing befalleth them. As the one dieth, so dieth the other, yea, they have all one breath, so that a man hath no preeminence above a beast, for all is vanity. All go into one place, all are of the dust, and all turn to dust again. Who knoweth the spirit of man that goeth to upward, and the spirit of the beast that goeth downward to the earth? Wherefore I perceiveth there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his own works, for that is the portion for who shall bring him to see what shall be after him. So we'll go ahead and remove the arc from the electric. I don't need to see that. We're past that. Thank you. We will move forward. Again, that was not the intention there. Let it rest. We don't need to see it. Arc on the electricity. It needs to be removed as you send the future there. Again, you have a nuclear device on this electricity that does not need to be there. I don't need to see the future. You can lay it to rest. Everything will be okay. This is the original. Ecclesiastes I've never even heard of. So,
I want to
moving
see what
forward
that
here,
said.
as we go through the congregation. We know where we stand here. I don't need to see that. Everything will be okay. Nobody knows. Okay. That's the thing. All right. Another reason for it is that the opposite view involves a self-contradiction. If on seeing a potter, for instance, at work on the production of a jar, one is certain in view of the evidence that the jar will come into existence, then it would be a contradiction in terms to say that the jar is non-existent, at the very time with which it is said it will come into relation. For to say that the jar that will be is non-existent is the same thing as to say that it will not be. It would be like saying this jar does not exist. It, however, you say that before its manifestation, the jar is non-existent, meaning thereby that it does not exist exactly as the potter, for instance, exists while he is at work on its production, i.e. as a ready-made jar, then there is no dispute between us. Objection, why? Reply, because the jar exists in its own future potential form. This is the Upanishad. It should be borne in mind that the present existence of the lump or the two halves is not the same as that of the jar, nor is the future existence of the jar the same as theirs. Therefore, you do not contradict us when you say that the jar is non-existent before its manifestation while the activity of the potter, for instance, is going on. You will be doing this if you deny to the jar its own future form as an effect. But you do not deny that, nor do all things undergoing modification have an identical form of existence in the present or in the future. Moreover, of the four kinds of negation relating to, say, a jar, we observe that what is called mutual exclusion is other than the jar. The negation of a jar is a cloth or some other thing, not the jar itself. But the cloth, though the cloth, although, I want to say also, it is the negation of a jar. It is not non-entity, but a positive entity. Similarly, the previous non-existence, the non-existence due to destruction, and absolute negation must also be other than the jar, for they are spoken of in terms of it, as in the case of the mutual exclusion relating to it. And these negations must also, like the cloth for instance, be positive entities. Hence, the previous non-existence of a jar does not mean that it does not at all exist as an entity before it comes into being. If, however, you say that the previous non-existence of a jar means the jar itself, then to mention it as being of a jar instead of the jar itself is an incongruity. If you use it merely as a fancy, as in the expression, the body of the stone roller, then the phrase, the previous non-existence of a jar, would only mean that it is the imaginary non-existence that is mentioned in terms of the jar, and not the jar itself. If, are you arguing the need for the jar? If, on the other hand, you say that the negation of a jar is something other than it, we have already answered the point. Moreover, if the jar before its manifestation be an absolute non-entity, like the proverbial horns of a hare, it cannot be connected either with its cause or with its existence. As the logicians hold, for connection requires two positive entities. So basically he's saying that, like, the jar exists because of the need for the jar. They're arguing. They're in court arguing over me, the patent for it, the jar. So they're arguing: did the jar exist because of Clayton, or did the jar exist because of the need for the jar? But why was there need for the jar? How did you come to that knowledge for the freshness of the plant? Can you answer me this? Who brought this knowledge to you? I've already said it. You have not brought this up. Well, see, there it is. You did bring it up, but I brought it up in a previous moment before I ever read this. So you would have not have known about the freshness in the jar without me putting the plant in the jar to begin with. Therefore, the need for the jar, as the bird flies. So the need for the jar, again in court here, as determined in conclusion would be because of Clayton. It's like the monkey looked at the ark and learned some knowledge. You were told not to look at the tree of knowledge, and Clayton is the tree of knowledge. I just want you to understand this. Would be God. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, you bit the fruit, the poisonous tree here. I don't know what else to tell you. In many forms, you were told not to do it. See, again, the paradox here in itself. I like how no one blames the alien for making the ark. So my question is, out of 1 trillion people, how did you find me? You could create it or all you want. I'm sorry. To me, that is like, it's redundant. 1 out of 1 trillion, you pick on this guy? No, sir. I'll stop you right there. There's a crowd. We're in the congregation here. Out of the ark, I have more than enough people here you could have picked on. And I don't know what it shows. I'm just saying, you picked me out of a group. You came to me. I like how no one blames the alien. So how did you make this ark? And without the ark being made, you're getting into this paradox. It's because of Clayton. End of discussion. You dishonor your father. Debate over. Case closed. The jar was to be made, period. Alright, objection. He's objecting. Objection, it is alright with things that are inseparable. Reply, no, for we cannot conceive of an inseparable connection between an existence and a non-existent thing. Separable or inseparable connection is possible between two positive entities only, not between an entity and a non-entity, nor between two non-entities. Therefore, we conclude that the effect does exist before it is manifested. By what sort of death was the universe hold on. By what sort of death was the universe covered? This is being answered by hunger, or the desire to eat, which is a characteristic of death. How is hunger death? The answer is being given. For hunger is death. The particle high indicates a well-known reason. He who desires to eat kills animals immediately after. Therefore, hunger refers to death. Hence, the berry, though. We've mentioned the berry and the apple. The orchard. Hence, the use of the expression death here means Hiranyagarba, as identified with the intellect, because hunger is an attribute of that which is identified. This effect, the universe was covered by that death, just as a jar, etc., would be covered by clay in the form of a lump. He created the mind. The word tat, that, refers to the mind. That death of whom we are talking, intending to project the effects which will be presently mentioned, created the inner organ called mind, characterized by deliberation, etc., and possessing the power to reflect on those effects. What was his object in creating the mind? See, this is being stated. Thinking, let me have a mind. Through this mind, Atman, let me be possessed of a mind. This was his object. He, Prajapati, being possessed of a mind after it was manifested, moved about worshipping himself, thinking he was blessed. As he was worshipping water, and all liquid substance forming an accessory of the worship was produced. Here we must supply the words. After the manifestation of the ether, air, and fire, for another Shruti, the Tao says so, and there can be no alternative in order of manifestation. Since death thought, as I was worshipping, water sprang up, therefore Arka, the fire that is fit for use in the horse sacrifice, is so called. This is the derivation of the name Arka, given to fire. It is a descriptive epithet of fire derived from the performance of worship leading to happiness and the connection with water. Water or happiness surely comes to one who knows how Arka, fire, came to have this name of Arka. I'll be right back. Let us continue. Let us break bread here. This is due to the similarity of names. The particles ha and ve are intensive. It still doesn't make sense. I'm still trying to wrap my head. I get the speed and like I see it. Seeing is believing. I feel like I see it though. Don't get me wrong. I can't feel it. I see it. I don't feel it. You know what I mean? I feel like I should be like teleporting to this other realm. You know what I mean? And it's like I can feel it. You know what I mean? As far as that is concerned, but I can't do it. So therefore, I cannot feel it. I cannot do, therefore I cannot feel. But you're there. But I can see. Ecclesiastes chapter 4. How far are we into this? We've said a lot. We've done it all. An hour and 21? That's not bad. We'll take a 5-minute break. Hold on. We were at chapter 4, I believe. So I return and consider all the oppressions that are done under the sun. Behold, the tears of such as were oppressed, and they had no comforter. And on the other side of the oppressors there was power, but they had no comforter. Wherefore I praised the dead which were already dead more, and the living which were yet alive. Hold on. Yep. Which are yet alive. Yet better is he than both they which hath not yet been, who hath not seen the evil work that is done under the sun. Again I considered all travail and every right work, that for this a man is envied of his neighbor. This is also vanity and vexation of spirit. The fool foldeth his hands together and eateth his own flesh. Better is a handful with quietness than both the hands full with travail and vexation of spirit. Then I returned, and I saw vanity under the sun. There is one alone, and there is not a second. Yea, he hath neither child nor brother, yet is there no end of all his labor. Neither is his eye satisfied with riches. Neither saith he, for whom do I labor, and berave my soul of good? There is also vanity, yea, it is a sore travail. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their labor. For if they fall, the one will lift up his fellow. But woe to him that is alone when he falleth, for he hath not another to help him up. Again, if two lie together, then they have heat. But how can one be warm alone? And if one prevail against him, two shall withstand him, and a threefold cord is not quickly broken. Better is a poor and a wise child than an old foolish king, who will no more be admonished. For out of prison he cometh to reign, whereas also he that is born in his kingdom cometh poor. I considered all the living which walk under the sun, with a second child that shall stand up in his stead. There is no end of all the people, even of all that have been before them. They also that come after shall not rejoice in them. Surely this also is vanity and vexation of spirit. Ask them, O prophet, who is the Lord of the heaven and the earth? He sends down rain from the sky. Those who respond to the call of their Lord will have the finest reward. As for those who do not respond to him, even if they were to possess everything in the world twice over, they would certainly offer it to ransom themselves. They will face strict judgment, and hell will be their home. What an evil place to rest. Can the one who knows that your Lord's revelation to you, O prophet, is the truth, be like the one who is blind? None will be mindful of this except people of reason. They are those who honor Allah's covenant, never breaking the pledge. and those who maintain whatever ties Allah has ordained to be maintained, stand in awe of their Lord and fear strict judgment. And they are those who endure patiently, seeking their Lord's pleasure, establish prayer, donate from what we have provided for them, secretly and openly, and respond to evil with good. It is they who have an ultimate abode. The gardens of eternity, which they will enter, along with the righteous among the parents, spouses, and descendants, and the angels will enter upon them from every gate, saying, Peace upon you for your perseverance, how excellent is ultimate abode. And those who violate Allah's covenant after it has been affirmed, break whatever ties Allah has ordained to be maintained, and spread corruption in the land. It is they who will be condemned and will have the worst abode. Allah gives abundant or limited provisions to whatever He wills, and the disbelievers become prideful of the pleasures of this worldly life. But the life of this world compared to the hereafter is nothing but a fleeting enjoyment. To John J. Private. Philadelphia, December 18th, 1791. My dear sir, since writing to you by Mr. Bayard about the 1st of November, I have been favored with your letters of the 13th of September and 2nd of October. As the sentiments contained in the first of these respecting the communications of Mr. M. to the National Convention of France were also transmitted to a private letter from you to the Secretary of State and replied to by hand, both of which I have seen. I shall dwell no longer on the subject than to just observe, first, that considering the place in which they were delivered, and the neutral policy this country had resolved to pursue, it was a measure that does not appear to have been well devised by our minister second day. Aware of this himself and his conduct would be criticized. He has assigned reasons for his adoption, a summary of which you are, of the Navy officers and the privateersmen of France, who had resorted to our ports, and had been laid under such restrictions as the neutral policy required from us, also disagreeable to them, and represented this country, and not without effect, as unfriendly to the French Revolution, to do away which he found himself necessitated to counteract them by strong assurance of the good dispositions of the people of these new states towards that nation. And thirdly, although I think with you that he stepped over the true line to accomplish this, yet under the then existing circumstances, the expression of such reciprocal good will be susceptible of two views. Of one of which even the pending state of the negotiation, by alarming as well as offending the bee ministry, might have no unfavorable operation in bringing matters to a happy and speedy result, than which nothing is more desirable or can be more ardently wished for by the friends of peace and good order in this country. As the Secretary of State has written to you several times since the receipt of your statement of the negotiation on the 13th of September, I shall add nothing to the observations which are contained in his letters on the subject thereof. The business of the session hitherto has been tranquil, and I perceive nothing at this time to make it otherwise unless the result of the negotiation, which is anxiously expected by all, should produce divisions. As yet no details have been handed to Congress on this subject. Indeed, no communication of that business has been made to anybody except those about me in the executive departments. A paragraph of which the enclosed of the copy is running through all our gazettes, accompanied with a report that the United States are contemplated as a mediator between France and England. To ascertain by what authority the first was inserted, Bach, in whose paper it first appeared, has been called upon the Secretary of State. King Louis the Third? Oh man, it's like an identical picture. Very well done. I'm missing a beard though. A paragraph which was enclosed the copies running through. Then the Virginia. The Virginia escheats of British property do not, as I am informed, stand upon the ground as related to you, but as I am not accurately enough to read in the law respecting these escheats to be precise in my recital of it, I will request the Secretary of State to give you the principles thereof. The French arms, unpleasant sensations, and be considered an evil light by that nation unless an intimation to the contrary should first come from them. Excuse me? Try to overthrow me. Everyone's trying to overthrow me. As I expected, and as you were informed the result would probably be, so it has happened that the Western insurrection has terminated highly honorable for this country, which, by the energy of its laws and the good disposition of its citizens, have brought the riders to a perfect sense of their misconduct without spilling a drop of blood. In the eyes of foreigners among us, this affair stands in a high point of view. With great truth, I am, etc. Corn and Oats. To William Pierce, Philadelphia, December 21st, 1794. Mr. Pierce, your letter of the 14th instant, with the papers and reports which were enclosed therewith, came safe to hand. The whole amount of the corn crop I perceive is 1,639 barrels. I perceive also by the reports of the last week, and I believe it has been as much for several weeks preceding, your weekly consumption of this article is 22 barrels to the stock, and about 14 to the negroes, amounting together to 36 barrels, which multiplied by 52, the number of weeks in a year makes 1,872, and is 233 barrels more than is made. How far this extraordinary consumption has been occasioned by the hogs which have been fatting, and how far it is capable of production, it is more than I am able at this distance to determine. It would, if continued, be using considerably more than ever was expended on the estate, for which reason I observed in one of my late letters to you, at the same time, that I wish nothing to be starved thereon. I would have the corn, and indeed everything else, administered with the utmost economy, for hard indeed will it be upon me if I can make no more than my estate. Wheat alone accepted then is consumed thereon, and from the produce of that article overseer's wages and everything that is bought is to be paid. Can you form any judgment from the oats that have been threshed? What will be the amount of the crop? I am really mortified at not knowing the quantity of potatoes that grow in number 4 at Dogue Run, that I might have compared it with the yield of corn in the same field, and thereby decided with more certainty and precision on cultivating of both in that manner. Do you suppose that the field would have yielded more corn if it had been planted in the usual way that it is, at the distance of 5.5 or 6 feet apart each way, which it had given about the same number of stalks to the acre, than it has done at 4 by 8? And does the growing wheat in the field look as well as it does in others equally exhausted? It is interesting to know this. I wish also to know how the wheat and barley in general looks, and whether this mild autumn has not pushed it too forward. They're basically putting me in a corner over here. I am equally desirous of knowing how the clover and other grass seeds, which were sown last spring and winter, look at this time. A finer summer and fall never could have happened for them than we have had. The price of flour in Alexandria is far short of what it sells at here, $10 per barrel being the price of it in the city. This is an additional inducement to hasten the manufacturing of all the wheat I have, for as the freight round does not exceed $50, I shall not be disposed to receive there much less than the difference of freight and insurance between the two places. When is it probable, when the force that is employed on the mill race it will be completed, and the water turn wherein? I ask the question because I do not recollect the turn in which you speak of, nor how far, nor what depth it is from thence to the upper end of it. I am of opinion that you had better give the barn at Money Hole a thorough repair, and do all the jobs which are necessary before the new barn at River Farm is undertaken. I should like to consult you on the spot before any plan is formed for that, and to know with more precision than I do at present the advantages and disadvantages of the one of D Run. As the brick foundation for the sheds which I proposed to the build at the last mentioned place were laid last October, I am surprised to hear you say nothing can be done towards them till the spring on account of the brick work. Let the old barn at River Farm be well shored and propped to prevent accidents, which, if the people should happen to be in it at the time, might prove a direful one. The guy that shot himself. The field number 4 at that place will require much aid of manure, and much labor to recover it from the gold state in which it was when I viewed it last. And no work can be more necessary than to accomplish these, as far as the nature of these things and the means you possess will enable you to perform them. I am glad to hear so good an account of Donaldson. Encourage him to exercise spirit and industry, and convince him that you will support his authority. It may prompt him to exertion and pride. I perceived by the spinning report of last week that each of the spinners have deducted half a pound for dirty wool. To avoid this in future, for it left to themselves, they will soon deduct a pound or more. It would be best to let them receive none but clean wool. I do not recollect what allowance of provision the gardener was to have had by any former agreement, but being willing to allow him and his wife what they can fairly eat themselves without misapplication, waste, or giving it to others, you might let them have what they require, under those restrictions, and as they have no place out of the cellars or meat house to keep whatever is allowed them quarry. Whether it would not be better to give it out to them once in a while, weighing it to see how they go on, than all at a time. For they must know positively that no part of what they shall receive in any manner is by saving or otherwise to be considered as a perquisite and disposed of as such. To what they can eat they are welcome, but none shall be sold or given away unless perchance it may be now and then be to a person who visits and may eat with them, I am, etc. P.S. I have looked in vain for the notes for the Tobo I have in Alexandria. If I should have sent them to you, let Peter carry them to Mr. Lear of Georgetown, or you might send them by the post. But the postage you, not he, must pay. If you have them, not inquire of Colonel Fitzgerald, if I do not send them to him. Let Peter carry them to Mr. Lear of Georgetown, or you might send them by the post. But the postage you, not he, must pay. If you have them, not inquire the run-ons. Peace be upon you for your perseverance, how excellent is the ultimate abode. And those who violate Allah's covenant after it has been affirmed, break whatever ties Allah has ordained to be maintained, and spread corruption in the land, it is they who will be condemned and will have the worst abode. Allah gives abundant or limited provisions to whoever He wills, and the disbelievers become prideful of the pleasures of this worldly life. But the life of this world compared to the hereafter is nothing but a fleeting enjoyment. The disbelievers say, if only a sign could be sent down to him from his Lord. Say, O Prophet, indeed, Allah leaves to stray whoever He wills, and guides to Himself whoever turns to Him. Those who believe and whose hearts find comfort in the remembrance of Allah, surely in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find comfort. Those who believe and do good, for them will be bliss and an honorable destination. And so we have sent you, O Prophet, to a community like we did with earlier communities, so that you may recite to them what we have revealed to you. Yet they deny the most compassionate, say, He is my Lord, there is no God worthy of worship except Him. In Him I put my trust, and to Him I turn in repentance. Buddhist wisdom verses, 4 things to cultivate. The Yaka Alavaka asked the Buddha various questions on the spiritual life, and this verse is part of the answer. That faithful layman with 4 things, truth, wisdom, courage, charity, having passed away, does not grieve. 4 well-said verses. Some verses that were taught to the Bodhisattva by a Brahmin who had heard from them the Buddha Kassapa. He is rewarded with 1,000 coins for each of the verses. You should meet with the virtuous friend, not with the unvirtuous. Sit down with virtuous people. Be acquainted with those who are true, with the good who know the Dhamma, but do not mix with the wicked. Beautiful royal chariots decay, so too our body will come to decay, but the true Dhamma will never decay. The good and virtuous proclaim it is so. The sky is far, far away from the earth, crossing the ocean that is far, they say. But they say what is much further than that is the Dhamma of the good from the bad. A rich merchant dies after living like a pauper. The Buddha explains that in a previous life he had given alms to Pesakabuddha, and so in this life he became rich. However, he regretted it later, so he couldn't enjoy it, or not. Grain, corn, silver, gold, other possessions, slaves, servants, messengers, and dependents. He cannot take anything when he dies. He goes, leaving his possessions behind. But what he does by body, word, and mind, what that's truly his own, he takes that along. That follows him along like a shadow. Therefore, he should do whatever is good, gathering up merit for the next world. And the next world, merit supports things, supports beings. The priority of truth. The Bodhisattva reaching to the man-eating king, which eventually persuades him to give up his evil habit. He would give up wealth for limbs, would give up his limbs for life, but a man who guards the Dhamma will give up limbs, wealth, life, and all. Truth and untruth have different results. To protect their newborn son, the Bodhisattva, the king and queen, build an iron house and keep him in it. On coming of age, though he realizes he is not safe from old age and death, and proclaims 24 verses which culminate in the following famous verses. The Dhamma protects one living by it. The Dhamma well practiced brings happiness. This is the advantage of the Dhamma. It does not lead to bad destinations. Therefore, the true Dhamma and false Dhamma will surely never have the same result. False Dhamma leads to the nether regions. The true Dhamma will lead you to heaven. Anusapanikata is reborn as a god in heaven. Later he comes to see his Buddha and utters these words. Deeds and knowledge, concentration, and virtue are the life supreme. By these mortals are purified, but not by their clan or their wealth. The path to heaven. The Bodhisattva, reborn as the lord of the god Sattva,
So they try to
explains the path to heaven to his former life.
grab my brain as I'm walking
Through
my
rightly
home?
aspiring
Yeah,
with
that's
voice
real
and mind,
smart.
and doing nothing wicked with the body.
You're a dumbass.
A layman with
Let's go ahead
abundant
and remove
food and
these
drink
dumbasses.
should be faithful, generous, bountiful.
No,
Being
nobody's
kind
scared
in
of you,
heart and
moron.
kind in
I will
speech,
shoot
one
you.
who lives like this need not fear dying.
Fucking piece of shit.
4 things leading to success. A monkey king outwits a crocodile who tries to
No,
eat him,
moron, no.
and the crocodile acknowledges his escape
Thank you for
with
the
the
camera.
following verse. He who, Monkey King, has 4 things, truth, wisdom, courage, charity, will surely overcome his
No,
fear.
sack of shit. Shut
3
up.
things leading to success. The Bodhisattva escaped
What a moron.
from a man-eating ogre, Rakasa,
Moron.
and the latter acknowledges his escape
Go ahead and
with the
exit this
following
building.
verse. He who, Monkey King,
So the
has
next step
3
is to
things,
shoot you.
Dexterity, heroism,
As you step
wisdom,
in here.
will surely overcome his
And I
foe.
try to step away from you, and you try to go around me. You fucking retard. So the next step here, motherfucker.
Wise discrimination.
And I mean
The
what I said.
Bodhisattva uncovers a female monkey.
Go ahead and
as
get
the
these
real thief
retards
of the king's jewels, and
out of
the king
there.
praised him with the following verse. In battle they wish for a hero.
I
In
cannot
advice
wait.
for calmness of speech. In food and drink for one friendly. When there is need they wish for the wise. The gift of fearlessness. The gods come to see the Buddha and praise various kinds of giving, including the gift of fearlessness.
You can get
Living
the fuck
without
out.
hurting living beings, fear and blame, and doing nothing wicked. They praise the cautious, not
I
the
sure you are.
incautious.
Get the fuck out.
Through conscience, the good do nothing wicked. The provenance of the Buddhas. The Buddha taught this verse in answer to a question by Venerable Ananda. The heedful one gains the deathless, the heedless one the state of death. Those who are heedful do not die, but the heedless are like the dead. To Tobias Lear. Philadelphia, December 21st, 1794. My dear sir, you will let...
Today the kids at the school are going to learn about fraud. Today you're going to learn about fraud. Before we move forward here, and you stop using that motion, retard. It's like Death on the Nile, where they're suicidal and they're trying to take everybody out with them. Okay.
Letter of the 17th instant was received yesterday, and I am glad to find that an act of the Virginia Assembly has been obtained for prolonging the term of the completion of the inland navigation of the Potomac. The like, I hope, has been or will be obtained this session in the Assembly of Maryland. A good opportunity presenting itself on Thursday last, I embraced it, to inquire of Mr. Morris if the directors of that company might entertain any hope of deriving aid from Mr. Weston's opinions respecting the lock seats at the great fall of that river. His answer was, Mr. Weston, from some peculiar circumstances attending their own concerns, had been prevented from visiting that spot, as was intended, but that he was now expected to be in the city in a few days, as I understood, when we would propose and urge his going thither. The plan of Mr. Claiborne's engineer, as far as I understand it, is to avoid locks altogether. The vessels are received into a basket or cradle and let down by means of a lever and pulleys, and raised again by weights at the hinder extremity of the lever, which works on an axis at the top of a substantial post fixed about the center of the layer. On this principle, but differently constructed, Mr. Greenleaf a few months ago shewed me a model, the efficacy of which he seemed to entertain the most exalted opinions. My doubts of the utility of both arise, first, from the insufficiency of any machinery of this sort to bear the weight of a cradle when charged with water, and a loaded pH, and a loaded boat therein, and its aptness to get out of order by means thereof. Secondly, I do not find that there are in general use, and thirdly, because I recollect rightly, Mr. Weston has told me, but of this I am not certain, that no method of raising and lowering boats had been found equal to that of locks. Still, as I observed in my last, I should be for hearing the opinions and explanations of any and every scientific and practical character that could be easily got at on this subject, and therefore would hear Claiborne's engineer, as well as Mr. Weston, especially as he professes to be particularly well skilled in the application of them, in propelling boats in an easy and cheap manner against the streams, and in conducting of water to cities, or for any other purpose whatsoever. The bill you allude to has not passed, nor do I know what shape it will take if it does, and therefore can say nothing more on the subject at this time than that there will be no precipitancy in engaging either the agent or the means of carrying the law into effect. If the measure which I have recommended should be adopted, with the importance of it I am strongly impressed. Consequently, if anything should be required of the President towards carrying it into execution, I shall feel it in a particular manner my duty to set it a-going under the most favorable auspices. I now have, and for some considerable time have had, 25 hogsheads tobo in the warehouses in Alexandria, which at some times I have forgot, and at other times have been undisposed to take the prices which were given for Potomac tobacco on the Virginia side. He's talking about the top of the plant. Originally, this tobacco was of the best sort, put up dry, and the quality of it reported to be exceedingly good. If the latter is the case still, it will, in some respects, and for some purposes, have the advantages of new tobacco. But what to do with it I know not. In Alexandria it might not bring me 18 per weight. When in Georgetown, I mean in the warehouses in these places, it might bring a guinea. I have thought, but whether it be practicable to accomplish it without difficulty, I am unable to decide that if the tobacco could be removed from the warehouses in which it now is to those in Georgetown, and be re-inspected at that latter, that I might be a considerable gainer by it. But admitting that this can be done without encountering impediments which might involve inconveniences, or that would excite notice or remarks, neither of which I should incline to subject myself to, it would be previously necessary to know whether the tobacco would pass at the latter place. For if I should be brought there and be condemned, I should lose in whole, and sustain an expense besides, whereas it, in its present situation, it will, I presume, command the price current in Alexandria. If the suggestion here mentioned can be accomplished without involving the consequences expressed above, the best expedient that occurs to me to effect it is under the idea of its being purchased by, or rather offered for sale to a Maryland merchant, to have it re-examined whether it is in presence of the Georgetown inspectors, who should be paid for their attendance, and who should declare to the supposed purchaser whether they would pass it, were it brought to the warehouses in Georgetown. If in the affirmative and there is no other impediment to the measure, the whole business might be easily accomplished by the removal, reinspection, and issuing of new notes, either in my name or in that of the supposed purchaser, the last of which for several reasons I think would have the best appearance. Whether this project can be carried into execution or not is to me uncertain, but to avoid delay and in order to enable you to do it if it should be thought eligible, I send you the notes for this purpose, or to know that the tobacco would sell for where it is, if it be not eligible to remove it. They may be kept or returned according to circumstances. In the warehouses at Georgetown I have, or ought to have, by this time 9,000 pounds of crop tobacco, as you will perceive by the enclosed letter to me from Colonel Deakins, the same by this also. I return Dr. Curry's letter with thanks for the perusal of it. The picture drawn in it of the state of things in his own country, and the details which he gives of those of the belligerent powers, are gloomy for them indeed. All here are well, and all join in best regards for you, with dear sir, yours, etc., NYPL. To Tobias Lear, Philadelphia, December 21st, 1794. Merry Christmas. My dear sir, looking into an old portfolio which I had not seen this many a day, I found the papers which accompany this note relative to the river Potomac. I do not know that any of them will be useful to you, but as well for the purpose of keeping them together as to afford you to opportunity of deciding for yourself, they are now forwarded to you. I also send you the sketch which has been presented to me by Mr. Claiborne of the new method of lowering and raising boats without locks. It will give you a better idea than my description, which in the letter of yesterday was capable of doing, and for the reason it is forwarded, I am, etc. To the Secretary of War, Philadelphia, December 23rd, 1794. Sir, the letter of which you enclose as a copy was received yesterday. The information which it contained being of a serious nature, I request that a strict inquiry may be instituted into the matter, and a report thereupon made to me. To the Secretary of the Treasury, City of Philadelphia, December 24, 1794. For carrying into execution the provisions of the Act of the 18th day of the present month, whereby the President of the United States is authorized and empowered to borrow a certain sum of money on the credit of the United States, I do hereby authorize you, the said Secretary of the Treasury, in the name on the credit of the United States, to borrow of the Bank of the United States, or of any other body or bodies, politic person or persons whomsoever, a sum not exceeding $2 million at an interest not exceeding 5% per annum, and to enter into such agreements for the reimbursements thereof as shall be needful and proper, hereby promising to ratify whatever you shall lawfully do in the premises. I believe that's it. That's my banknote right there. Oh, okay, he got that. So you basically on this one you have to cut this off. I would have had to have this before you had two of them. Other enchantments you don't have Shroud, yeah. So you just got it before I had the chance. Get on out of there. Anyway, so I will win that battle. I don't know what you're talking about. I don't even know why you made stuff like that. Defeats the purpose of the game. You know what I mean? So. So I guess I will be presenting this at some point somewhere along the line. Otherwise he wouldn't have done it. So they can get mad all they want, and they can sit there and kick and scream and punch and do whatever the fuck they think they're going to do. It's not changing. He wouldn't have done it otherwise. So. He wouldn't have done it otherwise. He wouldn't have done it otherwise. So, Smith here. And I'm not going to argue about it either. By no means, if you think that. So now that I've presented my evidence, and he's presented the banknote for $2 million at least, he's doubled it since the time, and which it hasn't been very long. So we're not taking no, and they're sitting there screaming at me through the screen, and I'm not taking no for an answer here. You know what I mean? It's clear as day that I have you. You know what I mean? It's clear as day. But this will be presented. Cool. Thank you. I'll be back, George. I think you wanted me to do duty next, so.